So tonight we are making sweet pea ricotta bruschetta, and there are actually two recipes. The bruschetta, which is the pea mixture and how to put the bruschetta together, the basic appetizer, and then microwave ricotta, which is what we're going to start with. I have to begin with saying, though, and this is specifically for my sister who better be watching, the correct pronunciation of bruschetta is bruschetta, not bruschetta. And if you want to annoy an Italian, and you should just never do that, say bruschetta. But seriously, bruschetta is the correct pronunciation. And I did look to see if there was a dialectal variation somewhere in Italy, and I could not find one. So I thought I'd let you know that because I know you're going to love this recipe, and I want you to say bruschetta properly. So I don't write a lot of recipes with the word microwave in the title. Actually, I think this is my first recipe with microwave in the title. I have never had a microwave in my commercial kitchen because I would just never use it. And at home, this one right back here that we brought out for this is used, mostly for reheating leftovers. Although generally I usually do that on the stove or in the oven. But I was looking for a way to make a small batch of ricotta, either for a specific recipe like this one, this bruschetta, or just to have on hand to dollop on my pasta or my frittata. I just love having it in the fridge. So I started on the stovetop with this, and I make large batches, of course, different recipe. But I wound up with a microwave. So however you make your ricotta, just remember you can't use any milk or cream that has been ultra pasteurized because the bacteria has been cooked right out of it. So it won't form a curd. So let's just put this together, and I've already started it, and we'll talk about the process. And what I have here is 2 cups of whole milk. So I mixed this up earlier. 2 cups of whole milk, a 1/3 cup of plain Greek yogurt, so it has to be plain, of course, you don't want that flavor, 2 teaspoons of fresh lemon juice, and I threw in a little bit of kosher salt, about 1/8 of a teaspoon, and I eyeballed that. And I stirred the whole thing up, and I put it into my microwave, and microwaved it on high for 4 minutes, uncovered. Have to use a glass container, that's important. Plastic is not a good idea in your microwave. And uncovered is really important because if you cover it, it will bubble up, and then you'll have kind of something else on your hand. And so can you go overhead on this just so they can see what this looks like? So what I did was I microwaved this for 4 minutes, and it came out not looking a lot different than this, but I did stir it really gently, and that's just to help the curd form. And then it has been sitting probably now for a little over 10 minutes. I took this out right before we started, so about 10 minutes, let's call it that. And what I'm going to do is strain this out. Now, how I make ricotta typically, because I usually do large batches, so I either use a gallon of milk or more. So just depending on what I have in front of me. My normal recipe with a gallon of milk, and I use buttermilk. I use a quart of buttermilk, and I use a pint of heavy cream. Remember, pasteurized, not ultra pasteurized. That's important. So that's heated slowly, and I bring it up to about 170, and then I let it sit at 170. The curd forms. I let it sit longer, and then I strain it. Very much like this. But the difference, of course, is the volume of it, and it's done stovetop. When I'm doing that, because it can scorch so easily, I always use what am I thinking of? Simmer plate. That's right, a simmer plate on below the pan because it can scorch really easily, and that's really, really helpful. And you just have to take it slow. So it takes quite a bit of time, and then it has to sit, and you have to drain all of that. So this is a smaller process, but very, very similar. And in this recipe, I'm using, of course, lemon juice. The important thing is that you have to have some kind of acid. And last night we made a recipe that had some ricotta in it, and I used this recipe for it. And it came up in the discussion that some people use vinegar and some people use lemon juice. And for my large batch, I always use buttermilk. So after that conversation today, I tried a similar concoction using just buttermilk, no lemon juice. So I did 2 cups of whole milk, pasteurized, not ultra pasteurized. And then I put in a half a cup of buttermilk, and it was beautiful. So the biggest difference I can see is that the curd is different depending on what kind of acid you use. They're all good, but you can taste a little bit of the lemon juice in this. If you use vinegar, you can taste a little bit of the vinegar in it. If you use buttermilk, you get that really lovely buttermilk flavor, which I love. But for this recipe, I really wanted a little lemoniness to it because there's lemoniness in the pea mixture as well. So that's what I went with. Okay, so if I'm doing a large batch, I use a spider or it's like a large flat slotted spoon to take this out. But because this is small, I'm going to use a small strainer. And let me use this one. I like this one better. It's a little bit bigger. And you are overhead. Okay, good. You can see how much curd I get. So this is going to be about a half a cup when I'm done. And I'm going to let that drain a little bit. But I got a lot of curd in there, and then it goes into this bag. This bag is actually designed for cheese making. You can buy them online. They are sometimes they call them silk chinois. They are really handy. They come in all kinds of sizes. You can use them for straining, of course, this type of thing or anything that you want to. They aren't particularly heat resistant, so you don't want to maybe pour your hot stock in there, but they're pretty resilient. They dry, you know, I wash them out just at the sink. They dry in 10 minutes, so I just hang them up and put them away until I need them again. But so what I'm doing is I'm just going to try and get as much of the visible curd. This did really well. It really pays to let this sit for a little while, so this was probably, I would say, maybe 15 to 20 minutes. In the recipe I say 10, but if you can spare the time and can do a little longer, that's only good. Okay, let's see if I can tap out some of that. That's good. So then what I'm going to do is kind of roll the cheese here, the ricotta, to the side. There's still quite a bit of curd in there that I need to separate, but if I pour this directly through that, it'll start to dissolve the curd. This is pretty delicate, so I'm going to pour it on the side of this so it can go through my cloth. And by the way, if you don't have something like this, you can buy cheesecloth, and cheesecloth, of course, is made for cheese making. So a double layer, that will work nicely well. But these bags are so handy to have. They're really inexpensive, reusable, which I always like, which cheesecloth isn't. And I have probably 5 or 6 different sizes depending on what I'm doing. I just love having them on hand. And you can see how many little pieces there are there. And this is really draining quite a bit. And I'm just going to kind of keep folding this over so I can get some clear space to run this through. And be careful because, of course, you could just, if this falls in, you're starting over, so you don't want to do that. Okay. But I also don't want to miss any of this gorgeous curd. Anyway, I was heartened today to find out that really it's about the milk and the acid. Whatever combination you want to do, you can make ricotta depending on what you're doing and what kind of flavor you want to wind up with, or what you have on hand. So vinegar, lemon juice, buttermilk. Okay, let's just get a little more. See, that's getting really solid in the end. And I'm just going to go ahead then and dump the rest of this in. Great. I'm going to just set this aside. Let's push this like that. That's an okay place to put it, right?
Sure.
Okay. And one piece of advice on this is get it over to your sink and run water in it because this is very sticky and it's really hard to clean. So you can't possibly put this right into your dishwasher. You need to make sure you rinse it, get it out of there, or soak it because it will stick. Okay, let's go on to our pea mixture. So we are using frozen peas for this, which is perfectly fine. How's that? Can you see that all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. So I'm going to move my shirt here. I don't want to get anything on that. I like my shirt a lot. Okay, so let's open this up. So what I've got here, I'm using frozen peas. Frozen peas are blanched before they're frozen, so they're already cooked. So all I did was rinse them with water until they were thawed. I did not heat them or anything else. Beautiful bright green. If you get peas from the market, you're going to want to blanch them because, of course, they need to be cooked, and you'll want to get them close to being fairly soft. Now, these are pretty soft, but they still have some, you know, some texture to them. So let's get those in. And then next, we've got the favorite ingredient, which is a whole bunch of mint. This is 3/4 of a cup, pretty much. This is what I had. So leaves only, or a couple of little stems here. Not the center stems, though, because those will not chop up quickly enough. So, but the softer stems can go in if you have some. And then we need some lemon juice, and I've got my lemon right here. Already done some juicing. I need a tablespoon of that. We'll toss this into composting. Okay, so tablespoon of lemon juice. So I love these, by the way. These are these little measuring cups made by OXO. So this is 4 tablespoons, 1/4 of a cup. It's nicely measured out, but I can see everything from the top. So I'm not doing this, which I really love. So I need a tablespoon of this. Okay. Perfect. In some ways, this mixture reminds me of a pesto because you've got, you know, your herbs. Of course, you have peas. You're going to add some olive oil. There's no garlic in this, but, you know, there certainly could be. Okay, so we've got that in there. And then we need 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. So it's such a nice, bright flavor with all of that mint. And, of course, lemon juice. This is taking a minute. 3 tablespoons. Always extra virgin olive oil. There's nothing else. There we go. Tablespoons, and that goes right in there. And then we just need a little bit of kosher salt, and I'm not going to measure that. I'm just going to estimate. Kosher salt, and then freshly ground black pepper. I got it all in there, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Let me just wipe my hands off here. And then this is going to get a little noisy. Sorry about that. All right, I'm going to pulse this. Let's just scrape this down. Wow. Not only is this is almost a shocking green color, it just smells fantastic. Okay. Very fresh. In fact, that's when I serve this, that is the comment I always get first is, oh, it's so fresh tasting. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, I think that looks great. I'm going to give it one more pulse, and then we'll call that good. That was 2. Okay, so let's move this. Put that over there. And here I have just some little pieces of baguette that I've toasted. Let me bring this over here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab another bowl and take this out of here. You can see it's still, if I tip it, I don't know what camera you're on. If I tip it, I'm still getting some of that whey out of there, and that's good. So basically, when you're making ricotta, the longer you strain it, of course, the drier it gets, and you can keep going with this. If you buy ricotta salata, That is basically ricotta that's been really, really drained and sometimes pressed, and it has very little of the whey left in it. So you kind of have to make a judgment call in terms of how far you want this to go. And I will say, if you leave this for too long and it's drier than you want it to be, you can always add a little cream or a little buttermilk or even just a little milk and mix it back up to get that creamy consistency that you want. So hang on one second. Grab in a bowl. Okay. So let me just pull this a little bit more. I love cheese making at home, especially something like this, because it's super easy. It's so easy, there's kind of no reason to not do it. And then the other thing is that it tastes so fresh. It's so it's just so delightful and so simple to do. And if you buy store commercially produced ricotta in the store, not something made in a little deli, but something that's commercially produced, it tastes tainted. After you have this, you'll just never go back. Won't be able to. Okay, so I'm going to put this down here, and let's just roll this right into. There we go. Okay, all came out nicely. And again, what I do with these is I don't throw them in the washing machine because of their texture. They tend to collect anything that they're around. So if there's any lint or pieces of fiber or hair or anything in the washer, it will wind up in here. So I wash these out by hand, and then soap, water. Sometimes I run them through my dishwasher just to make sure that they're really clean, and then I hang them up and they dry, like I said, 10-15 minutes, and then I put them away and use them again. But for now, throwing this over here. Okay, and there is my ricotta. Let's just stir that up. A little bit of salt in there. I'm not going to add any more, but depending on what you're using it for, you certainly could. So to me, this is a very civilized amount of ricotta to have on hand. You can dollop it on something. It's not going to make you stressed out because you have 2 quarts of it. So you don't have to start making lasagna or freezing it or doing anything else. And literally you can see how easy it was, and it took 4 minutes in the microwave to make. Okay, let's put this together. So, as I said, I just toasted these baguettes. This will make at least 18. And these are really small baguettes, by the way, so depending on the size of your baguette. And I like to just take a little bit of this. Can you believe that green? It's just shockingly bright. And if you have questions for me, Mark, while I'm doing this, while I'm plating, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sure. So when you're finishing it up in the food processor, how do you know when it's actually done?
Okay, so in the recipe I say spreadable, and the truth is that because of the skins of the peas, even if I put it on high and kept it going, it's never going to be completely smooth. It still will have some texture to it. I don't know, maybe if you did it for a really long time, but it's going to have some texture, and you want that. You don't want pea soup. You want this really beautiful, delicate kind of presentation, but with some texture to it. So I would say I pulse it until I'm comfortable with it. And you saw that was what, maybe 10 pulses? I didn't really count.
Yeah.
But so spreadable is what I say, and it looks like a chunky pesto. Very much like a pesto. And the smell, I can smell that mint. It's just like overwhelming. It's fantastic.
Why do they ultra pasteurize milk?
The question is, why do they ultra pasteurize milk? Well, it has to do with money. That's the only reason to do it. It's just so that the milk doesn't spoil, as in they can ship it across the country. Sometimes unrefrigerated, sometimes it's refrigerated, but they know if it dips down below food safety standards, it's not going to spoil because it doesn't have any bacteria in it. With that, and it's basically boiled. It's cooked. It's cooked out. So with the bacteria that goes away, which is, of course, good for you. Just good bacteria and bad bacteria. And then with all of that going away, so does most of the nutritional value. So not a big fan of it. My opinion is that food is meant to spoil. And what has happened in our food system with not fresh food is that, they've come up with ways to keep things from spoiling for so long. At the sacrifice is the nutritional value. But of course, then the other thing is that as a producer, if you have a whole bunch of product on hand and you can't sell it right away, and it has a month and a half before it expires, then you've got more time to sell the product. So that's the reason that they do it. Should they do it, or is it something that you should buy? I mean, there are times, if you need milk, you need milk. So yeah, but I mean, if you've got the choice and you can buy pasteurized product that pasteurized is a good idea, but if you're gonna will spoil, but you have to use it. That's the best option always. And as far as cheese making goes, if you want to make cheese, you don't have a choice. You have to, because you won't get a curd. You'll just have milk. Okay. So I'm dolloping this on top. I did not add any salt because I'm going to just finish this off with a little bit of salt. Is that looking okay? You can see everything?
Yeah.
Okay. These are like little bite-sized appetizers.
Do you have to use Greek yogurt?
The question is, do you have to use Greek yogurt? No, because there's lemon juice in here, and the yogurt is to add some of that acidity to it, and it has a bacterial base as well, so it has that function. But Greek yogurt I use kind of exclusively for everything, because Greek yogurt is thicker, and it's thicker because of the process, and the process is that it's triple strained. And every manufacturer, this is the manufacturer that I prefer by a lot, Greek Gods. Every manufacturer handles it a little bit differently, but that's the traditional process, is making sure that it's triple drained. So it's thicker. It's also higher in protein, and it's higher in fat. So there's that, but it's really good. So that's the reason I used it. Okay, I'm going to just do my little pepper in here. I have to be a little bit careful because I chose a rimless plate. So, and then I'm using a little bit of sea salt. This is Malden sea salt, and anybody in the cooking club hears me talk about Malden sea salt a lot. It's one of my favorite. It kind of pops in your mouth, so it's not like a rock salt that's really hard. So I really appreciate the texture. Okay, and then so I did salt, pepper, and now I'm doing a drizzle of olive oil. And I'm going to try and keep this kind of to my baguettes, but kind of my little design element. And that is it. Perfecto. Okay. Any more questions come up?
Somebody asked if you could use raw milk in the process, or...
The question is about raw milk. Well, yeah, except for no. So, raw milk is, in some states and some areas is just not legal anymore, and that's because it's not pasteurized, and the bacteria can be dangerous, particularly to people that are in at-risk populations, and that would be either, young children, babies, elderly people that are ill. So there is that. But generally speaking, unless you're used to drinking raw milk, you probably don't have the bacteria in your system to deal with it. And so it can make you very sick. In fact, I had an employee who was trained in food safety, wonderful guy, and he decided to try some raw milk. Came from a credible farm, but he got very, very sick. So there are reasons that it's not allowed right now. I would say if you've had access to it and you knew the people and it was something that you were going to do on a regular basis, it's probably fine. But for this, I'd say no. Just use your pasteurized milk and go with that. Great question, though.
Mary asked, what other vegetables could you use for this recipe? I suppose another kind of pea, or...
Yeah, I would say, I think the type of pea would be you're right in terms of that. Possibly lima beans, but I can't really see it with another vegetable. Can you?
Mm-mm.
No, I think it's kind of a pea recipe, and
Maybe a pepper or something, but it's not going to chop up the same.
no, it's going to be different. I mean, so I think you're looking at a different recipe, but the concept of doing something that's, kind of rustically pureed, maybe with the lemon juice and all of that, and then served with ricotta is, I think, a nice thing. I mean, I make a lot of different kinds of bruschetta, and everything from fig to, and I'm willing to pretty much chop up anything. So, but for this particular treatment with the mint and all of that, the peas are really great. So I would say for that treatment. But if you want to do something else with peppers, I mean, peppers and tomatoes and whatever else you want to, the plethora of herbs that are now available, yeah, you can certainly do that. And ricotta is good with everything, just everything. So you can tell I'm a fan, right? That's why I had to come up with this small batch, because I just get uncomfortable if I don't have any sitting in my fridge and when I need it. And then I can make it like on the fly. Should we talk about what's coming up next week?
Oh, somebody also mentioned that edamame is about the same texture as peas, so edamame might work.
Oh, that's a nice idea. Yeah, and that would be that's a really good idea. I might want to do something a little bit different with it. I mean, I think, I mean, if you're using edamame, you could kind of go a different direction with the seasoning. So maybe you don't use the mint, and maybe you use something like dill, or use it, or basil or something like that. So just because I think that the peas and the mint are so nice together, but absolutely edamame is a great idea, and it would be a really nice color as compared to like a lima bean, which is a softer kind of green. And I think a lot of the appeal of these dishes that we've, and it's funny, I look at my Instagram for the past, I don't know what, 2 weeks, everything is green. It's like, it looks like I'm Irish. It's just this bright green everything. So part of the appeal of this is the color. And so the edamame is probably a really good idea. And I'd have to think about what would go, maybe chive. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, good suggestion. Thank you, Minneapolis Farmers Market, as usual. We will see you probably tomorrow or Saturday. We'll be heading down there to get things for next week. And everybody, thank you again. Please keep cooking and make some bruschetta. Ciao.